Hello, welcome back to episode 6 of Shed the Shame. Super excited to be here. If you're watching the YouTube, this is our second recording today, so we're just going to be honest about that. You will see I do not just wear the same outfit every single time that we record these. We are coming in hot for episode 2 so that we can enjoy some vacation, because vacation is good for your mental health. Having time off is good for your mental health, and Algernon and I stand that all the time. So just 100%. For full transparency here. We have another amazing guest today. Bettina is going to talk about some really interesting I don't even know how to just like things with us today. So we will let her get into that. But first, we'll just do a little bit of an intro of ourselves.
So I am Algernon Sperber, the CEO and founder of Lady Box, an organic period subscription box. Excited to have Bettina Erickson on. She actually helps pack, source, and contributes recipes in the Lady Times in each month's box. We are doing this podcast to help shed the shame surrounding periods, because there's over 800 million of us that have a period each day. So why are we being shy or shameful about this? And if you would like to help support the work that WaterAid does to support that, they do provide clean water and sanitation in over 30 countries across the globe, which helps us bleed in dignity. And if you'd like to support, then purchase a Shed the Shame water bottle on shedtheshame.co. If you're on YouTube, you can see the pretty water bottle. And yeah, excited to kick this off.
Yay, and I'm Alex Coble-Frakes. I am the CEO and co-founder of The Agenda Period, a planning system and app that helps women and menstruators understand the 4 phases of their menstrual cycle and that use that information for their own planning and productivity. All of that will be in the show notes. Super excited to be supporting with the Shed the Shame campaign, because no one should be ashamed of this. It's super normal, totally chill, dude. So excited to be working on this podcast with Algernon, and very excited to hear more from our special guest today. Thank you.
So before we meet Bettina Erickson, I wanted to bring up an interesting fact, and it totally ties into shame around periods. There was a study, I can't source the study because I don't remember it, but if you Google it, you'll be able to find it. But there was a recent study that shows only 12% of girls aged 12 to 9 and 38% of women ages 21 to 30 are knowledgeable about menstruation. So if you think about, again, the stat of over 800 million people having a period every day, and about like 50% of us are menstruating, only 12% of young girls and 38% of women are knowledgeable about menstruation. It's no wonder we feel isolated and shameful about our periods, because we don't have the knowledge that we need to feel empowered and accept our own bodies. What do you all think about that?
It's terrible.
I'm mind blown in a bad way, and I'm not surprised. After starting the Agenda Period, like talking to people about periods and even just saying the 4 words of like what the phases are called, they were like, the follicular, the who, and like it doesn't even have to be like super sciencey. I love the science about it, but even just like knowing on a high level what's going on, and like thinking you can get pregnant all day every day of the whole, like just like not understanding how all of the parts work together. It's just like damn, we deserve more, we deserve better, and this is just total BS. So that is shocking. That is a shocking statistic, but yeah, damn.
Yeah.
Whew. All right, so we are going to jump right in, and we are going to start talking about this fantastic topic. We like to do a little bit of a cycle check-in. We already did one on the last episode, but what this looks like is kind of tuning in with guests and seeing if they know where they're at in their cycle, from menstrual follicular ovulation to the luteal phase. They can share where they're at and how they're feeling. I shared earlier, I'm in the luteal phase, and I am feeling a little sensitive today. So I am just honoring where I am at and learning how to work with that part of my cycle. So if Algernon or Bettina, if either of you want to share your cycle check-in, go ahead.
So I'll talk about mine. Ever since I got my second COVID shot, my cycle has been super messed up. Like right after I got my shot, my period was like 10 days late or 12 days late, I think, or maybe even later. Like so much so that I was like, is it ever coming back? Like, where is it? Like, I'm just gonna not wear white shorts because I have no idea when it's gonna show up. It's gonna be here any day. And so I'm like on cycle 2 following like being fully vaccinated, and I kind of feel like the same thing, like it could show up any day. I have no idea. So I'm like expecting it to arrive sometime around the 4th of July.
Goodness. Oh goodness, Becky. Bettina has a cousin that calls her period Becky. And so it's like, oh, Becky's coming.
Hilarious. She's 15 and we went on a big family trip to Hawaii, and she was like, oh my God, I can't believe Becky came with me on this trip. She's so annoying. She's totally ruining my beach days, like cramping my style. And all the time she'll like blame stuff on Becky. She'll be like, yeah, sorry I ate like all of the cookies. Becky made me do
it. Sorry to any Beckys or Rebeccas out there. There's nothing against you. It's just a fun nickname that Bettina's cousin has for her period.
So funny.
I'm checking in most likely in my menstrual phase. I'm not sure. I have an IUD. I'm just basing it off of, different indicators that my body is, again, indicating. So I'm just going to say that I think I'm in my menstrual, but no physical proof of shedding. I'm just feeling it.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting that you bring up the COVID connection. I've been seeing that on the Facebook group that I run, and mine hasn't really been messed up at all, but I know quite a bit about, like, I think it's messing with people's ovulation because it's like an intense stress on the body. And so the first time I got the shot, I knew I had already ovulated. And so then like once you already ovulate, that like it doesn't really stop that train, like your period just comes. And then the second shot, I was on my period. So again, I had already ovulated. But I think, when we don't even consider when may we have stronger reactions to these things, what kind of stress is going into the body, like this is something I hope to teach eventually with the agenda period, is when is the most optimal time to get these set of things to kind of keep the regular flow going, because I had never even thought about that until I started hearing like that vaccine, because it's the stress, could mess with ovulation. We're also in the luteal phase. We have a little bit of a lowered immune response because our body does this to help. Otherwise our body could like attack a potential pregnancy because it has different DNA than us. So we're more susceptible to colds, flus, anything during the luteal phase. Like, again, these are things we should know about. These are things we should be taught about. Like when might be a better time to get a vaccine so that it doesn't maybe have some of these impacts. And I think they don't even really know yet, because I don't think enough has been studied in terms of like optimal vaccine time for menstruating people. So just like some extra thoughts in there.
Such a good point. I love that. So awesome. Love these cycle check-ins, Alex. I love that you have like started this. So Bettina, what is SELA, and what do you want to share about your prolapse? What do we finish it with? Prolapse bladder.
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah. Tell us your story, lady.
Okay, so first of all, Tina Erickson. I am the owner and creative mastermind behind SELA Lifestyling and Events. I had the rare treat of trying to launch an event planning business right during COVID. So I did a pivot, and my branding throughout COVID was all about virtual gatherings and doing party in a box. So if you're doing a Zoom team happy hour, like I will package up a bunch of delicious snacks and like a mini charcuterie board and drink ingredients, fun like straws, napkins, cups, whatever, package it up and send it out to everybody, and then everyone can unbox it and enjoy basically like the same party that they would if they were together while they're apart. So that's my main thing. And then I also do rentable holiday tablescapes and decor for events like baby showers and stuff like that. And I'll come to your house and cook for you if you live near where I live. And then
amazing. That all sounds amazing. I want all of it. Thank you.
And then I am so lucky that Algelin has let me kind of creatively express myself in the Lady Times magazine. I do a monthly recipe, which is a lot of fun, doing like coming up with recipes, or sometimes it's more of just a topic that like I want to share, kind of like, you know, thinking of it as like virtually sharing with people, like, here, make this veggie tray, and like, you know, here's what we're thinking about this month, here's what we're talking about, and kind of just giving a long distance cheers to other menstruators. So that's been a lot of fun, and because I love packing boxes, I have been helping pack lady boxes also, which is, I know that that is not Algelin's favorite part of Ladybox.
Definitely not.
It is like, I literally love like wrapping gifts and packing boxes. So happy to be on board for that.
Awesome. So you're on here to share and help shed the shame around like things that happen to our bodies, like a prolapse, bowel, and bladder, and how that affects your cycle, your uterus, like everything. So can you share about that and what you went through and the different surgeries you had to go through?
So I will actually rewind. Oh, sorry.
Can you start with like, yeah, what is like a definition of prolapse if someone doesn't know what it is or they haven't heard what that means?
So
Yeah.
prolapse, or it's also like pelvic organ prolapse, POP is the shortened version of it. It is when your pelvic floor muscles, which like they hold all of your things in place where they're supposed to be, and it's just a failure of any of those pelvic floor muscles. I do know that, you know, physical therapy is very helpful, and I think that that definitely, I feel like that definitely needs to be like just a part of post-birth recovery. Like, it just needs to be standard, not something that like you find out about after it's too late. Even like, you know, during pregnancy, I think that, you know, doing pelvic floor physical therapy would be amazing. And I know that it is standard in a lot of other countries, but not in the United States. And that's, you know, we need to up our maternal health game here for people who are carrying babies. Anyway, so prolapse, it could be your bladder, it could be your bowels, it could be your uterus. Any of those organs can basically fall into your vagina. And it actually, like, I thought it was something that like happens to old ladies. I think I read a statistic though that like 1/3 of women, or, you know, people with uteruses and vaginas, 1/3 will experience some version of prolapse in their life. And that is insane considering that most people don't know anything about it. So kind of like backing up a little bit, like before my prolapse, I have 2 children. They are 5.5 and 3. And so my first pregnancy, I suffered pretty bad birth trauma. It was a vacuum delivery. I had a 3rd-degree tear. Like, I tore like all the way through. So I had like a bajillion stitches, and it was a horrible recovery. And so I like went into my second pregnancy thinking like, great, what's going to happen to my vagina? Like, it's already a train wreck. What's going to happen to it the second time around? My first baby was 9 pounds, 3 ounces. My second baby was 10 pounds, 4 ounces. And basically, like, my second baby just like tried to bring all of my organs out with him. I didn't really notice anything until he was about 6 months old, which, like, you know, you go to your 6-week postpartum check and your doctor's like, okay, great, like, you can go back to life as normal. And you're like, great, like, my body still feels like trash. Like, what is even happening? Anyway, when I went for my 6-week check, I kind of thought that things like didn't quite feel right. And she's like, well, you did give birth to literally a ginormous baby. Like, when he was born and she caught him, she was like, oh my God, your baby is huge. Like, he was 10 pounds, 4 ounces, and he was 23 inches tall. Like, I don't even know how he fit.
Holy cow. You like squeezed out like a mini TV or something like that.
I know.
He weighed almost as much as my twins. I just had twins in November, and like they weighed like a collective like 12 and a half pounds. Like your one baby almost weighed that much.
So
That's
anyway, yeah, mind blown. So he was born in April, and kind of towards the end of my maternity leave, and I was very fortunate that I worked for an amazing organization that allowed me to have full 12 weeks off of work, which is like kind of unheard of. But when I was preparing to come back from maternity leave, I went and I saw my OBGYN one more time, and I'm like, really, something is not right. And I noticed my first period after giving birth, which was about, it was about 3 months after, and it was the 4th of July. So I'm like, I'm back on my old normal cycle now that I'm back to like the 4th. But it was the 4th of July, and I was visiting family, and I like was like, oh, my period, like first period. Good thing I packed some tampons, and I put in a tampon, and I like started prepping for the barbecue, and literally like within 30 minutes my tampon had ejected itself out of my body. Like I was just like standing there, and it was just like
Ejected?
like just fell out. And I'm like
an old VHS player. Just
I'm like, what the hell? So I cried a little bit on the inside, and like found a pad, asked my cousin, like, do you have any pads from Becky? Like, do you and I put on a pad, and I'm like, okay, like what's going on? Like, I don't have time to figure this out right now. Obviously something is weird. And I told my doctor about this, and like one thing that had been happening that I literally like, because I guess of like having body shame and like being afraid of like talking about things or asking questions, like all this whole time, I also like, in order to go poop, I had to like lean back. Like I could not poop sitting straight up. I had to lean back, or sometimes lean forward. And I like didn't happen to mention that to my doctor at first. And when I mentioned the tampon ejecting itself, she was like, oh, are you having any trouble with bowel movements? Like, I'm like, yeah, I have to like lean back or lean forward. And she's like, oh yeah, that's not good. And so she did an exam, and she said that, she thought for sure that I was experiencing prolapse, and she sent me to a specialist. So I went and I saw a urogynecologist, and I have to say, like, sitting in the waiting room, it was like me and like the Golden Girls. Like, I was by far the youngest person by like a landslide, like 20 or 30 years. And I'm like, great, like here I am, like my body's falling apart just like an old person. And that doctor did my exam, and I was totally shocked, because I hadn't really ever heard or read about prolapse before. And he took a rubber glove and like tucked it up, but then like tucked part of it like back down, and he was like, so this is your vagina, and this is your rectum, and this is your bladder, and like both of them are falling into your vagina.
that sounds so uncomfortable.
Yeah. And it was like, and recovering from birth, it's like you don't really know when your body's going to feel normal again. And so I was only 6 months out from birth when I had this appointment. And my prolapse was a stage 2 plus. So like a stage 1 is like just a little bit, a stage 2 is like more significant. A stage 3 is actually like where the prolapse can like block your vagina, and a stage 4 is if it's like protruding to the outside of your body, which I guess can
Whoa. I did not know that stuff could happen. That's insane.
And so he suggested surgery, which I did. I did want to do physical therapy, and I actually talked to a physical therapist, but I worked for a hospital at the time, and my insurance was really amazing, and I was going to be quitting my job to be a stay-at-home mom. And so I knew, because let's talk about, you know, the other problem with the American healthcare system is that I knew if I wanted to have this complex surgery, having it while I still had that amazing insurance was basically like my only option, that I wouldn't be able to ever afford having that surgery if I chose to wait and do it at a later time.
Just total bullshit. It's total
Yeah.
bullshit, because like there's a world or scenario where like the physical therapy could have helped in, you know, or at least lessened it or made a less complicated surgery, but there was no way for you to even roll the dice and like explore all those options, which is just unacceptable.
It really is.
I'm so sorry. Oh my God.
So I did the surgery, and it's considered an outpatient surgery, which is like nuts. Although they have you spend the night in a recovery room, so it's like it's outpatient, but you spend one night. So basically, and I'm fascinated. Like, I love medical drama TV shows. I love Grey's Anatomy. I love New Amsterdam. I loved ER when I was young. Like, I'm all about all of the medical drama TV shows. And so I was like really excited. Like, can I stay awake for when you wheel me into the operating room so I can see what it looks like? And they're like, sure. Most people like would try to jump off the gurney like on the way. And so I actually like decided to not use one of the anesthesia drugs that they give you to kind of like knock you out like before they bring you back, which, you know your options. Like, that drug, you don't have to have it. It's literally just to calm you down while you're getting ready to go to your surgery. And so I chose not to have it. And so I was like totally like stone cold sober when they wheeled me into the operating room. And I was like, wow, like look at these bright lights. Oh my God, look at all those tools. And the thing that I kind of wish that I didn't see was like these giant robotic it like stirrups, like these massive things that they like completely strap your legs to so that they can do the surgery. And I was like, yeah, I could have gone without seeing that part of it. But what they did was they opened up the anterior wall and the posterior wall, so the front wall and the back wall of my vagina, like tucked my organs back up to where they're supposed to be. No mesh, because mesh is bad, apparently. And then stitched it back up, and that, I think it was like maybe a 1 or 2 hour surgery. Like, it's pretty fast. But the worst part, worse than recovering from the surgery, like the surgery itself, the recovery wasn't very painful. It was similar recovery to vaginal birth, like 6 weeks of, nothing in or near the vagina. But the worst part was, I, because of the trauma to my bladder, I had to go home, or I went home without a catheter, and I was home for 16 hours, and I was not able to go pee. And I had to go to the emergency room, and they had to give me a catheter, and I had to have a Foley catheter with a pee bag strapped to my leg for 10 days while the body recovered from the trauma of surgery.
Damn.
And this was at the same time that I was pumping for my baby. So I had like basically tubes coming out of all of my most sensitive spots. And I wanted to crawl out of my own skin. Like, having that catheter in, like not being able to escape the catheter, not like basically not being able to leave my house. Although I did end up going grocery shopping once with my catheter, which
you were brave.
I was thinking. I wore a wool skirt. like my pee bag tucked inside
Oh my gosh.
but that was like definitely do not recommend. I know that some people that's their reality and that they live with catheters, and like my heart goes out to all of those people because that was like probably the hardest like mentally time for me, like those 10 days of like feeling so like trapped in my body and not having control over like anything that was happening with it. Also, because my baby was so gigantic, there's a 20-pound weight limit restriction for what you can lift. And my 6-month-old weighed 20 pounds. So I couldn't even lift my baby while I was recovering, which was really hard. But I have to say, like, quality of life post surgery, it's like so much better. Being able to like wear tampons and not have to lean forward or backward to go to the bathroom. It's been so great, and I mean, would have loved to see if physical therapy would have helped. But I chose the route of doing surgery, and I think I've found there's a couple of pages on Instagram of like a woman in the UK who's pretty funny, who like writes about prolapse, and there's a couple other ones. But I really think that there needs to be a lot more education and resources, and just like people need to talk about it more because it's a thing that happens to so many women and so many, and I think that, they say 1/3, but I'm pretty sure that if you have given birth, that like you automatically are like shifted into, if it's 1/3 but not everyone gives birth, I'm sure that if you are someone who has given birth, that you probably are more lumped into that category. So I think that, definitely more education, more knowledge, more resources, like better care for people after they go through the trauma of birth. And birth is also and can be such a beautiful thing, but it is really traumatic to your body. And if you like, I don't know, I've seen the thing that's like has circulated around Mother's Day that's like a plate. It's like, this dinner plate is the size of the wound that your placenta leaves inside of your uterus after your baby is born. Like, be nice to your mom.
Yeah, it's intense. I have a question about like kind of around that education component. Like you didn't know what was going on. You had some funkiness around pooping, but if someone else is listening to this and they're like, oh yeah, like I think there's some funkiness going on for me. Are there any things that you can kind of point to, like if X, Y, and Z are happening inside of your vagina, here's a good, go get checked, go like schedule yourself an appointment.
Like definitely, self-awareness, like while you're in the shower, like if you like place a finger or two in your vagina and you're like, oh, like it feels different than it did before. And I think like definitely doing it while you're standing, because while you're laying down, your body, like things like you don't have the pressure of those organs like pressing down. And so like if you feel a bulge, if things feel like different, also if you like, one really good way to like one thing is, a lot of women have problems with like peeing, like jumping or laughing, that there's like, oh, if you've had a baby, you pee your pants when you laugh. Well, if that stops happening, chances are that your bladder is like not in the right spot, and now like that tube is kinked because your bladder has shifted. And so, people would be like, oh, like, do you pee your pants? I'm like, no, actually, I don't pee my pants because my bladder is like not where it's supposed to be. So I can't pee my pants. So definitely, or like a feeling of like fullness or heaviness in the vagina, especially after like long periods of standing or after working out. And I was talking to another friend who does have prolapse, not quite as severe, and just bladder. And this friend uses a pessary device for exercise, which that's like a whole nother thing that I never knew about. And it's almost like, I would say it's kind of like a NuvaRing, basically. Like it's just like, medical grade silicone or plastic device that you wear inside your vagina that holds your organs in place to make it more comfortable. Like if you have pain while you're running or jumping, and you like some people have them that they can take in and out. And then some people actually have them that you have to wear them in place for longer periods of time. And that definitely is a conversation for gynecologists, but they probably would refer you to a urogynecologist specialist, because I think it's like a
Got
little
it.
out of normal practice.
So those are
Thank
all
you.
super
That's
helpful. Yeah, and if you're, for some of the tools, or not tools, but like devices that you shared, if you know of, oh, we may have lost Bettina. Oh no, sorry, that's just my view. Sorry. If you have like links or anything, share them with Alex and me, and then we can make sure to share that in the show notes for this episode. But I want to talk about, like, menstruators experience so many different things during their cycles. And I love that you chose the name Selah for the name of your business, Bettina, which means, like, take a pause, take a beat. It's a Hebrew word, which you were inspired by the book Untamed by Glennon Doyle. But can you share, like, as a lifestylist and even event planner, and knowing, like, going through what you've been through with your body, what would you recommend for other menstruators to help them take a pause and honor their cycles? Like, how should they plan around that? What are some recommendations you have to help with that self-care and pause?
So yeah, definitely. I mean, I heard the word Selah for the first time when I was listening to the Untamed audiobook. And then I went back and I was like, okay, like I remember I really liked how she described it, but I went back and did some research, and I think my favorite explanation of the word Selah is it is the space between what happens to you and how you respond to what happens to you. And I think that is like such a beautiful like motto just to like live your entire life, like taking a pause, taking a breath to just kind of like whatever's being thrown at you, whatever's coming your way, like just to kind of like take a breath and ground yourself before moving forward. And that was why I chose that name for my business, because I feel like so much of the event industry is like go 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 go, and it's so stressful. And I think that pausing and having a more like slow intentional approach, and it's not going to be for everybody, but I like those are the people that I want to work with, people who are willing to like kind of take the time and slow down and appreciate the process. And also, like, in doing so, being able to form other relationships with other people who are intentional, and finding vendors and partners, and to kind of like make the whole experience a lot more grounded. And I think that for myself, post childbirth, post surgery, I also have an IUD now, and so my cycle is like, I don't notice it as much, like I don't bleed as much as I used to before. And I definitely am looking forward to getting my IUD out and kind of like being more in tune with my body. I know earlier, Alex, you were mentioning how like we spend so much time, I feel like, trying not to get pregnant, because there is lack of education around like, oh, actually, like there are smaller windows, which you don't really realize until you are trying to get pregnant. Like I didn't really know any of that until I was like trying to have a baby, and then I'm like, oh, I am misinformed. Like I could have just been using this like cycle tracker app for all these years and not like pumping my body full of all these hormones. Anyway, and so I think like for me in this phase of life, I don't really, my cycle doesn't dictate like my ability to, you know, like work, or like I don't have any of those adverse effects that a lot of people experience. Like I don't have horrible cramps, I don't have like some things that would impede productivity. And I actually just was hearing about this company in Seattle, and now I want to go back and ask my friend that was talking about, she was like trying to apply for a job there, that they get unlimited time off and that they get paid time off for menstruating. Like their whole entire staff of the company that works there, if you're on your period and you're having a bad day, like stay home and get paid to stay home and just like, you know, relax and do what you need to do to respect your body, which I think is amazing.
Menstrual leave, heck yes, all about it.
Now I can't remember the name of the company, but I will find out and I will tell you. Anyway, so I think that, you know, although I am not currently experiencing, you know, interruptions in productivity or anything based on my cycle, I definitely appreciate that that does happen to a lot of people, and that, you know, there are people who like can't get out of bed or need to just kind of scale back. And I think that, you know, as a society, we really need to be more forgiving and realize that, like, you know, menstruators' bodies are so powerful, and like we bring life into the world, but like we have that superpower, but also like let us treat our bodies with respect and like don't make us work so hard all the time.
Love that.
I love it too, because that's what we really teach with the agenda period. It's not only just like, I can do all of the things all of the time, but what do I want to focus on and what feels easy? Because it's not just about life not being shitty, but like, what about it being like better than we ever imagined, and more spacious and more joyous? And like, that's just so not the Western mentality at all. It's like, well, like, how can we do the bare minimum to survive and then keep making more shit for capitalism? Like, no, there's more here than that. So I love that. Yeah.
And I will say, I mean, I know I've talked to Aldrelyn about this before too, that I think that, you know, education is so important, because I grew up in a family where like we did not talk about bodies at all, ever. Like my mom told me that my period came from my front butt.
Oh my.
And so my front butt, which I like laughing with some friends the other day, and I'm like, that actually makes it sound grosser. Like, it's like, I think of like butts being like dirty. Like, anyway, so I actually had to like put in a lot of work to, you know, back in the day, like before the internet was like, thank goodness the internet exists now, but back in the day before all of this information was readily available for basically anyone who, I mean, if you even know how to search for what you're looking for. But I remember ordering this book like through the mail, through a catalog. It was like, I think maybe even published by that old brand Delia's, like those clothes that everybody loved to buy. Please bring Delia's back. I think that was like where I got that book, and I ordered it and like had it sent to my friend's house. Like her mom helped me order it, and I had it, and I would like hide it under my bed, and anytime I had a question about anything, I'd be like in my book, like, what's happening, what's going on with my body, I gotta read all about it.
Oh my gosh. Bettina, you're so fun to listen to. And if you can't tell, Bettina and I are, you know, we're close friends. She's so dear to me. And she's wonderful at sharing and telling stories. But we gotta wrap this up for this episode. So for working with you or learning more about you or learning about the recipes that you've got, where can folks find you, Bettina?
So my website is selastyling.com, and my Instagram is selastyling_events. And if you forget, you can go to the Ladybox Instagram, and I'm tagged in a bunch of yummy recipe posts on there.
Amazing,
So
amazing.
yummy.
we'll definitely put those in the show notes so people can find their way to you easily. So thank you so much for joining us on this episode to talk about something like less talked about than even periods, that many of people are experiencing prolapse. I know I have learned so much from this conversation, so I really appreciate it. So a reminder, you can find these episodes on YouTube. You can also find them wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Music, whatever is good to you. And if you want to join us, you can definitely email podcast@shedtheshame.co. And we're happy to get you on a podcast so you can shed your own shame. And please visit shedtheshame.com .co so that you can learn more about this amazing fundraiser, this amazing organization, and how they are helping menstruators bleed with dignity all around the world. So please go check out all of that. It'll be in the show notes. And remember, keep sharing your stories, because the more we share, the more we shed the shame. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.